In Retardanistan, a broken clock is right twice a day. Ladies and gentlemen, we think we have finally found a BEE policy that we potentially actually agree with. For once, the ANC weren't a bunch of racist morons.
So this is a new policy that says basically if you want to act on behalf of the state in a legal sphere, you don't have any BE points or transformation points unless you were born before 1993. So now the advocates for transformation and Dalu Mpofu's type of advocates are all up in arms because this is racist. But for us, this is the most pragmatic, rational BE policy we've seen from the ANC in well over 20 years, and we think it's a huge deal.
Yeah, because you actually have to raise the question, right? So if you were born after 1993, you would have been born into the so-called born-free era, as you guys will know. The question really becomes is if you've gone to the normal school and you've had a lot of advantages, we've seen through admission policies, other governments assisted funding programs, and so forth, how can you still be classed as previously disadvantaged? Because technically, you were never disadvantaged. You've actually had every opportunity that potentially could come through your way. You've had none of the apartheid legislation that stops you from getting on in life. So then the question really becomes, why should you be allowed transformation policies that effectively say we need to assist you for being previously disadvantaged? And that's actually a very pragmatic approach to take. The question then really becomes, if they're not previously advantaged and they cannot still get a leg up in the career progression or the career ladder, now what do you do with them? And this effectively is why all these transformation bodies are moaning, because according to them, if you're black and young, you cannot compete against white people. That seems a very strong approach to take. Do you not agree, Ramon?
Well, I think it's a very racist approach to take. But essentially, what this policy does is it provides equality between black and white advocates. Because if you're an advocate, you basically have to work for free for a year, which is called pupillage. And then after that, you're a junior counsel. And finding work as junior counsel is extremely difficult. You have to know people in the area, you have to have a good network, and that's when you can start billing. And then after 5-10 years, you become a known advocate in your field. For white professionals and white advocates, they couldn't rely on the state for this experience or the networking because the state had this very strict policy that they only hire black advocates. So now, if you're an advocate under 30, black and white, you are now totally equal. You have to make your name for yourself. And it has been done for hundreds of years in the legal profession. But for these advocates for transformation and all these other racist bodies, this is just unacceptable. If you're a young black advocate, you need special privileges once again. But the ANC says not this time. And it's funny, this is the only policy anywhere in the state that actually says 93 is a cutoff. Do you think, Byron, perhaps it could be the start of something interesting where this sort of policy for BE has a cutoff in other spheres of the state as well?
Well, you see, this is actually something that a lot of people have asked for a very long time when it comes through to transformation. We're 30 years into democracy with the ANC-led government, and we have to ask ourselves, at what point in time is the industry or the state itself deemed to be transformed? We've had this problem in the mining sector as well. You may recall that the mining sector took the government to court because they said, you're telling us to transform the industry, we keep transforming it, and then the BE partners we get sell their shares off, make a load of moolah, and then retire. And who do they sell their shares to? Oh, wait, white people. And then all of a sudden they have to retransform the industry. And the mining sector itself asks the question, at what point in time is the mining sector deemed to be transformed and they can just get on with business? And this seems to be the question that we would then get when it comes through to the rest of BE policy when it gets to the rest of the country. At what point in time is the country transformed? Ramaphosa himself admits in various speeches that the transformation plan is meant to be temporary. Well, how temporary is this? How far do we go? And it would appear based on this policy that the actual cutoff point now is 1993, which is pragmatic because anybody born before 1993, it would be difficult to argue that they weren't previously disadvantaged. But you can't argue that anymore. And with the new wave of professionals hitting the industry, how much more assistance do they really need? Are you really making the assumption that if you're young and a black professional, it's impossible for you to get on in a career unless the government actually assists you? That's almost implying that every black young professional is incapable unless they're given a hand up. Whites are fine, blacks aren't. That's incredibly racist. And it would be nice if this actually became a principle that the entire state adopted.
And also, just in line with what we're talking about right now, I mean, the state attorney has been extremely incompetent for a very long time. It doesn't actually pay its advocates on time. The SIU has investigated it for corruption numerous times. A lot of young advocates have lost a lot of money and credibility by acting on behalf of the state in any case. So, okay, it could be a hand up if you're young and black, not anymore. But if you were young and black, why would you want to go to a place like the state attorney that doesn't pay you, that is corrupt, and that actually doesn't dispense with justice? We joined the legal field to dispense with justice in the ordinary course of events. This was not a way to do it. So, ironically, perhaps this could make young black advocates a lot stronger, a lot more competitive, a lot more able to become junior counsel across this country based on their own merits. That can only be a good thing, but not for these, other advocates for transformation that want special handouts if you're not white.
So there's actually a more pragmatic way to look at this, especially more, and that is you got to remember this is what BE specifically when it comes to buying farms and getting a BE business and being given your share in a business. If you don't have skin in the game and you haven't actually committed anything to the business, you've got nothing to promote you or encourage you to make the business a success, right? You can go in there, you can run it to the ground. Who cares? It wasn't your money. I mean, if it's successful, great. If it's not, who cares? Right, and this is something that was raised even when it came through to the power ships. You may recall that the BEE deal failed because there's no skin in the game. Arguably, this is exactly what you can find even in the legal industry, right? I mean, this is why when you start in the legal industry, you usually kind of have to do everything pro bono because effectively you have to almost invest in your career. Because if you're given your career, then if it's successful, okay, cool. But if you're not, who cares? And paying it forward, working almost pro bono for a while, knowing you're not really going to get paid, but you're going to make your name and you're going to make a reputation, allows you at a later stage in your career to charge the good money because you've got a track record, people understand who you are. The incentive to invest and excel disappears when you keep constantly giving people a leg up and you say everything's a handout. Then the best people do not excel. They do not stay in the industry. They leave the industry. They become failures. And that's exactly what you see when it comes through to the Justice Department, because according to this article, the Justice Department wasted a cool R500 million in legal fees on cases that never went anywhere.
There's a difference between getting paid for work and getting paid as a grift because of your race. If this policy of cutting off BEE or points if you were born after 1993, if this policy is adopted across the board, across the entire state of South Africa, you're going to find a remarkably different, more efficient, less grifty, less corrupt state than ever before. So for once, in news that is not from Rita Danistan, we sort of agree with the ANC in this regard.